Welcome back to another Steven video. I'm your host Steven with no weird fixations at all, and today we have a crazy revenge story involving toenails. We'll get into that and a lot of other crazy revenge stories in a bit, but first, I was promoted above my rude, dismissive colleague and am now driving her crazy by gray rocking her. I, female 36, have a colleague Jamie, female 43. I started 3.5 years ago at our org and she came on not long after. I began part-time in my role doing fundraising while she was full-time in administration. We're on a team of 7 people, so pretty small, and I'm the only fundraising person there. Our org is probably around 50 or so altogether. At first, things were good. We shared an office, bantered, talked about our weekends and little casual life stuff. Totally friendly vibes. Then a year ago, I started sensing a power dynamic shift. I was growing in my role and starting to take more initiative, even being part-time. At this point, she started leaving me out of important fundraising-related meetings and conversations, despite her not having any fundraising expertise and an entirely unrelated role. Anytime I'd try to get information or remind her to include me, she would either talk around the issue, do it once and then forget, or ignore me altogether. She would also put wildly inappropriate numbers in our budget and resist any feedback from me about how to adjust them. One time, in a meeting, Jamie spouted some completely inaccurate, wildly overblown fundraising numbers, and I gently corrected it, saying something like, "To clarify, we're still in discussions about these numbers, so things might shift." She turned to me with a nasty expression and shut me down by whispering something rude that only I could hear. For various reasons I won't get into, going to our cynical, checked-out boss wasn't a good option, and HR doesn't really exist at our org. My part-time role meant I also had little power. I decided to start looking for a new job, but then a full-time person on a different team had to take medical leave, and I offered to step in and cover some of her work for a few months. Ultimately, I was offered her job and moved into a full-time position. The org even let me help rewrite the job description so I could continue doing some fundraising plus her job and have my own assistant to share the load. It was a big promotion for our kind of nonprofit org. I even got my own office while Jamie had to keep sharing with 2 other people, which I'll admit felt good. And while I'm not totally sure, I'm pretty certain I'm making more than Jamie now too. Now, Jamie only gets a half smile and a curt, "Hey," when I arrive at work. I don't even stop by her office to say hi or good night, and we only speak when necessary. I also started signing off all of my emails to her with "best" instead of "thanks," and am completely boring and neutral professional around her. Meanwhile, my new assistant, for whom I wrote the job description and got to help interview and hire, is absolutely fantastic. I took her out to lunch the other day to celebrate her first few months here. As she was about to go back into her office, she now shares with Jamie. She asked if we could do lunch more regularly. I said, "Sure, let's make it monthly." Jamie was in there to overhear the whole thing, and I honestly hope she did. She ain't getting any lunch with me. That's something you gotta earn by being a good colleague, and she's been nothing but dismissive and disrespectful to me. I can tell it's getting to her. She's been overperforming friendliness to me, fishing for me to get chummy again, and sharing news of any tiny donations coming in as if we should be jumping up and down screaming like children at recess. I'm always extremely calm and cordial to her, and always collaborative in meetings. She continues ignoring any emails where I remind of something or give a directive without a question. I know I'm getting under her skin, and she knows I have more power now. I would never sabotage her, but it feels good knowing she feels intimidated and unstable. She should. This is what happens when you're an insecure, rude colleague at work. It really is such a subtle touch for OP to say "best" at the end of the email instead of "thanks," or if you want to be fun, like "you're the best." Maybe throw in a "I love you" once in a while if you want a free HR trip. Although in OP's case, they could put all the "I love yous" they want in there because they said they don't really have HR. Vivid Topaz left a comment on the post saying, "Isn't it so strange when people act this way? I mean, everyone's on the same team, you know? You would think everyone wants the place to be successful." And speaking of wanting a place to be successful, if you want this channel to be successful, it would be awesome if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. Our next story is Cousins Get Me Back for Being a No-Show at Wedding. This post involved a couple of weddings and 2 separate deaths. 8 years ago, my dad passed away. It was a sudden tragedy, and I had to pick up the pieces for my siblings and mom. And while I also enjoyed being around my dad's family, it seemed they didn't put in any effort to include me in things anymore. Like my tether was broken, so I didn't matter. Maybe 6 months later, my cousin on my dad's side was getting married. I love weddings, and my cousin, so of course I RSVP'd. My invitation was made out for me, my husband, and 3 kids, so I RSVP'd for all of us. Well, just weeks before the wedding, my best friend was in a fatal car accident. My husband was very supportive and either stayed with our kids or found childcare for them so I could be at the hospital. She ended up passing away, and I helped her mom put a memorial and funeral together for her. It wasn't until texts started rolling in that I realized I'd completely missed all of my cousin's wedding festivities. Texts from her mom, my grandma, other cousins, all about how they were surprised we didn't show up. I responded how sorry I was, but that an emergency came up, and I forgot to mention that we wouldn't be coming to the wedding anymore. I thought that was it, but then the bride's sister started messaging me about costs of catering for both the rehearsal dinner and wedding food, since a total of 10 plates didn't get eaten due to my absence. I said sorry again, explained that my emergency was incredibly short notice, and also said that I wasn't even sure, with how quickly everything happened, that it wouldn't have even made a difference to catering if I'd remembered to talk to them about my change of plans. She wouldn't let it go. So I told her, probably a little bit mean, to just send me a bill and put her on mute. Her mom, my aunt, then called saying that I didn't need to respond like that and scolded me for now ignoring my cousin. I also said sorry to her for missing the wedding, not my response to my cousin, and explained what's been going on my end, and said that I really meant it when I said to send me a bill, as I can understand the sudden missing of a few guests could mess up the flow of things and feel like money was wasted. She said not to worry about the money, she just doesn't like us cousins fighting. She also said that she hopes we're doing well and gave condolences for my friend's loss. Again, I thought it was done with. But at the next few family functions, both cousins made jokes about how I should have provided all the food for the event to help balance things out. I looked at my aunt, and she just rolled her eyes. No one else said anything either. I kept my mouth shut because I knew as soon as I said something, Aunt would get involved. Because it's totally cool if her girls say something, but as soon as I retaliate, I'll be the one yelled at for starting a fight. This happened at one more function, some hinting at how little it must have cost for me to make a few desserts I brought. I decided after that I would just take a break from seeing family for a little bit. I sent a group text to all of my aunts and grandma explaining how I was feeling and that I didn't want any special treatment, just a break from the drama. So to not expect me at future functions for a little while. And so I went almost a whole year without socializing with my dad's side of the family. Not gonna lie, it hurt when my grandma would post on Facebook saying things like, "This was the best Easter we've had in a while," or "So glad I got to see all my family on the 4th of July." But I just focused on myself and my kids and husband, because in the end, they matter the most. Around 7 months later, my aunt invited me to a gathering at her place. She said it was time for both my cousins and I to get over this. I decided that was enough time, as I did really miss them, and showed up to the party. My cousins immediately apologized for their remarks. I again apologized for my no-show at the wedding, and it seemed everything was finally fine. Many events happened after that, and no drama was started. Well, my other cousin, original bride's sister, is now getting married. I had recently moved and so hadn't seen any of the family in a while, so I RSVP'd excitedly. The day comes, my family and I show up, gift in hand, all wearing pastel colors, as per the dress code, and I'm just here to fully support my cousin. The ceremony is beautiful. Cousin looks lovely, and when we all walk up to the reception hall, I can't find our name on the board to know where our table is. The coordinator sees my confusion and asks my name. "Oh, the bride has you on the list of people who ate ahead of the ceremony, so you don't have a plate for dinner." There's a table in the far corner for you, so others can move freely to get more food. I was stunned and heartbroken. I looked over to where she pointed, and I swear it was like some sitcom setup. A folding table pushed up against a wall next to the restrooms. My kids tried running over to the table, but I grabbed their hands, spun around, and started leaving. My husband hadn't fully heard the coordinator, so he also didn't understand what was happening. As we walked out of the front of the hall, my grandma stopped me and asked where I was going. I explained quietly that I was leaving, but she could see me shaking and on the verge of tears, so she held me there and insisted more information. I told her no, I don't want to make a scene. This is cousin's night and I'm definitely not going to start anything, so I need to leave right now. She let me go, and I didn't explain everything to my husband until we got in the car. He was silent for a moment, then tried to get out of the car. I knew what he wanted to do. I knew he would absolutely go back inside and scold someone. Maybe cousin, maybe her mom, I don't know. But I told him no. I said, let's just leave. We ended up at a fast food joint just to feed the kids. I sat in a corner quietly crying to myself, realizing how truly little I meant to my dad's family and how this would probably be my last time I saw them. Most folks would say good riddance, but let's face it, with every toxic relationship, there's always the good times too. The things that make you want to think everything is fine and that it wasn't a big deal. Husband's been holding me all evening trying to assure me that we don't need that chaos in our life and how we still have plenty of other family. He got me my favorite ice cream and we curled up while watching a movie. As soon as we left the wedding, I turned my phone off, but I knew the next morning what to expect as I turned it on. Texts from everyone asking where I went, how rude not to stay the whole evening, how they didn't even get to see my kids. I don't know if everyone knew of our seating and dining situation or not, but I don't care. I'm not talking to any of them. Good for the cousins, I guess. They got their stupid, petty revenge. OP then went on to post an update saying, I've been thinking of how to update this. I hope I'm doing it right. My aunt showed up at my house. She wasn't mad, she just wanted to talk. Husband had me stay inside with the kids while he went out to speak with her on the porch. Turns out after I left, my grandma turned bloodhound. She first spoke with my aunt, who knew nothing. The cousins were outside taking photos, so they both approached the coordinator. Apparently, coordinator was told that my family and I were on a special diet with multiple food restrictions, and that she was informed that, to avoid special treatment, we would be eating before the event. My aunt was stunned, but my grandma was livid. That meek old lady stormed out the side of the venue, interrupting the wedding photos so she could scold cousin. I don't know what was said, but it was said in front of her whole wedding party, and after that, except for the special events during the reception, first dance, bouquet toss, etc., the bride and her bridesmaids stayed to themselves. My aunt told my husband how sorry she was for letting this get this far, and that she understands if I don't want to communicate with them after this, but hopes someday that I do. And that's where we are now. I don't plan on going to any family events anytime soon, but I'm still going to stay in contact with my aunt and grandma. Also, I saw it mentioned, just go chill with grandma and avoid everyone else. So the thing about them is they all live on this 5-acre piece of property, like one house per acre. So if I go hang out with one person, I'll for sure end up seeing other family members. I do feel like historically throughout the whole situation, the aunt could have been better. I mean, I know their kids are adults, but they could have still tried to be a little bit of a parent or a voice of reason. At least they were decent enough to show up at OP's place and try to apologize. I think it would be worth keeping a relationship with her just as long as there's not like any unsavory leeching in of the cousins through her. Library Mouse left a comment saying, what you need to do is tell everyone why you left. Anyone who wasn't in on the punishment should be told about what they did. If they don't know, then they'll think you're an awful jerk. They need to be told why you left. Our next story is 14 years ago, I told the biggest lie. So when I was in primary school in year 4, must have been exactly 14 years ago to this moment, I had a bully we'll call L. L was an absolutely diabolical kid. He would pick and tease on me constantly and just would never leave me alone. I just remember being very sick of it and would cry every night because he was making my life so miserable and made me feel very small. One day though, I altered reality and he would soon never go near me again. Imagine it's a Thursday evening. I'm riding my bike with my friend at the time on my way home, and L pops out from the corner down an alleyway on his bike along with his dopey friends. They were twins, and the best way to describe them is the Bulldog twins from Timothy Goes to School. Just plain stupid little boys. I tell L to just leave me alone and that I don't want any trouble from him. He then pushes me off my bike and starts calling me names. To him, I was an ugly freaker and that I should watch my back at school, otherwise my head is getting flushed down the toilet. At this point, I would usually cry at him, but something snapped and I looked at him and uttered the words, "If you don't leave me alone, I'm going to tell everyone you punched me in the face and then say you're going to hit my little brothers next time." He got into my face and told me to do it while pulling my hair and then even spat on me. He then got on his bike with his stupid friends and cycled off. I then cycled a bit more with my friend down the street and told her to punch me. At first, she was reluctant, but I told her to just do it as hard as she could. She did, and even knocked a baby tooth out. I put that baby tooth in my pocket and told her if anyone asks her about what happened, to just say what he did and then add at the end that he punched me. I get home, work up some tears, mainly from jamming my finger into the socket my tooth got knocked out from, and went to my mom crying my eyes out. She comes over rushing, asking what had happened, and I told her that L had punched me in the face and threatened to attack my brothers. My sister was in the other room, heard what happened, and was livid. She stormed straight out of that house on the phone to her friend, shouting, and I quote, "Some freakers just attacked my brother, we're going to find him." I sat on the sofa quite happily that night with ice cream my mom let me have while watching The Simpsons before my bath in bed. The next day at school, my mom took me to the head teacher's office and demanded to see my head teacher. She came out and my mom explained what had happened to her, and we sat down, had a meeting, and I told her exactly what had happened, plus the great big fat lie. My head teacher took this very seriously, and when I say all I wanted was to get him told off so he would leave me alone, oh boy did he get more than that. The head teacher immediately suspended him from my school and even called the police. The school had an emergency assembly about the incident and stated that bullying would not be tolerated and students would face severe punishments for bullying. The police sat down with me, asked what had happened, told the same story, went to my friend who also told the same story. I do feel bad for making her do that, however, she was truly a ride or die for doing that. I then later found out that L had been expelled. The twins who were also there got into huge trouble as well. They went to a different school, but I was told from a friend who also went to that school that they were placed in a detention area of the school for a good while. I honestly didn't mean for it to go this way. However, in my head, to this day, he did need a lesson, and I did tell them the truth at least. About 2 to 3 years ago, I got a message from L on Instagram. Was honestly shocked that he would do that considering what had happened. I hadn't heard, seen, or spoken to him since that night he stopped me on his bike. He basically messaged me that he did used to bully me and he does regret it, but asked me if he actually punched me. I was flabbergasted. He genuinely thought that he had punched me that night. I did reassure him though that no, he did not punch me and that I had lied about it. He asked why I had lied about it, and I told him straight up that I told him that if he didn't leave me alone, that I would tell people that he had punched me and then wanted to hurt my brothers, and that he told me to do it. He replied back that he actually respected that I stuck with my word. I then asked him about what had happened to him after he was suspended and expelled, as I never saw or heard of him again. He told me that after he was expelled, his family was furious, came from a very strict family, and that he was basically grounded from doing anything for a long time. We're talking years. The police came and he had to speak to them and basically bluffed the entire time as he was crapping himself, and was then sent to some sort of order with his parents for behavior and anger. He was then homeschooled for the rest of that year, and then after that year was sent to boarding school for the rest of his school life. I also asked about the twins, however, he knew as much as I knew and said that the twins' parents had banned them from seeing him, and when he tried to ring the house phone after he found out, was told by the dad that he was a terrible influence on them and that they didn't want him going near them. I do feel bad in some way for doing that, but he honestly seems fine now and even told me that had I not done that, he probably wouldn't have learned his lesson and said that he would have never forgiven himself had I done something worse than a punch to myself had he continued. Edit. Almost forgot, my sister did find him a few days later with her friends, and my god did he crap himself. Apparently they were in a Tesco's he was also in and cornered him into an aisle and scared the life out of him. My sister went all out on him, saying that if he ever even breathes near me again, she'll make sure that it'll be his last breath. Obviously, she wasn't going to end him. It was my big sister protecting her own blood. Anybody in the comments can let me know. I don't know if my brain is conspiracy theory brain rotted or not, but honestly, I thought this guy hitting up OP on Instagram after all those years was going to have like the equivalent of a wire, like, did you make that up back then and you got me that charge or whatever? You know, effectively altered the course of my life and maybe made it harder for me. Basically, I thought L was kind of like fishing for grounds for like a mental or emotional distress lawsuit or something. And I thought it was kind of wild for OP after all this time to be like, yeah, no, I lied. I made it all up. I was almost waiting for the, I'll see you in court, and then the block or something. My friends or toys left a comment saying, big sisters, man, nothing scarier. I have a 2 years older sister, and man, I even felt bad for the idiot who messed with me in high school. Our next story is, I haunted my old apartment using minions over a lost deposit. So like 14-ish years ago, my boyfriend, now husband, and I were moving out of our first crappy apartment. The landlord was awful, and even though we cleaned it top to bottom and had improved it significantly while we were there, new fixtures my dad built, new tiling in the bathroom and paint, they refused to return the deposit, saying it was dirty and would need an expensive cleaner, even though they hadn't seen it yet. We learned later his daughter liked the flat after seeing what we did to it and wanted to live there, and I guess the landlord saw this as a way to get one more month of rent before having to house his extremely entitled brat for free. We were moving countries like days later, so we couldn't really fight it. So it was the last day before we were meant to leave and lock up, and I was super ticked about the deposit. We had a pile of old stuff we had used to decorate for my boyfriend's movie theater manager job we were gonna toss. One of these was a voice box from a giant inflatable minion from Despicable Me. Or possibly a standee, can't recall. The thing was that his voice box went off randomly, like once every few days, spouting fart noises and minions gibberish. It has a button and it was meant to be motion activated when customers walked past, but it also just went off randomly for some reason. Guess where I put that annoying little freaker? If you said crammed into a hole in the drop ceiling, then you would be right. The icing on the cake? I was Facebook friends with a neighbor who messaged me that she heard the girl talking about how her flat is haunted and she keeps hearing this scary noise at night, and if I had any of those issues. Was it petty? Yup. Would I do it again as a full-grown adult? No. I would have just let it slide and moved on. Am I a proud 23-year-old me for using minions to wreak havoc over $900? Yeah, little bit. Small update if anyone cares. I did a Google and found the display. I thought it was inflatable, but now I remember they were these heavy plastic molded figures the cinema received. They did the same for Alvin and the Chipmunks, if anyone remembers those. This is what they looked like. They also sat on a platform that had the sound box under with a motion sensor. That's why a sign is telling people to talk. I think the one assurance you probably can have here is that that lady has not seen Despicable Me. Because I feel like there's no way if you have seen Despicable Me that you wouldn't be able to identify that's a minion talking somewhere inside my house right now. I mean, how many times do you have to hear a little banana before you realize you've got a Twinkie-shaped monster somewhere in your walls? Tita Snacky Snack left a comment saying, banana? Banana! OP replied saying, it would screech banana sometimes, but it was so distorted in the minion voice that I'm sure it sounded like it was summoning a demon. Our next story is, I've been mailing my toenail clippings to my childhood bully once a month for 11 years. No return address, no note. So this is weird, and I've never told anyone, but here we go. When I was in middle school, there was this kid Marcus who made my life miserable. Like, not just regular bullying, he was creative about it. One time, he convinced half our grade that I crapped myself at a sleepover that I wasn't even at. Another time, he found out I had a crush on this girl, Emily, and he asked her out specifically to tell me about it in detail. Just cruel stuff, constantly for like 3 years. Anyway, fast forward to 2014, I'm in college, haven't thought about Marcus in a while. I'm scrolling Facebook and I see his mom posted something about a garage sale and her address was right there in the post. I screenshot it. Don't know why, just did. So that night, I'm clipping my toenails watching TV and I look at the little pile and I look at my phone with the screenshot and I just thought, I put them in an envelope, no note, no return address. Mailed it the next day. Felt stupid immediately after. Figured that was it. Got it out of my system. Whatever. But then, a month later, I'm clipping my toenails again, and I just did it again. That was 11 years ago. I have not missed a single month. I've mailed them from different cities when I'm traveling for work. I don't even think about it that much anymore. It's just part of my routine now. First of the month, rent, and toenails. The thing is, I have no idea if he even opens them, or if he throws them away immediately, or if his wife opens the mail and has been hiding it from him for years. I have genuinely no idea, and honestly, I don't really care. Like, I'm not doing this for a reaction. I think I just like knowing that somewhere out there, these envelopes exist. I looked him up recently and he's got a wife and kids now. Nice house. Seems happy. Good for him, I guess. I found his new address when they moved a few years ago. Took like 10 minutes. Sometimes I wonder if I should stop. I have a decent job and a wife too and normal life stuff. And also once a month I mail my toenails to a man who was mean to me when we were 12. There's probably something wrong with me. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Felt like typing it out finally. So, I have a question for anybody that's been a regular listener here. Has there ever been a weirder story on this channel? I mean, don't get me wrong, we just had a moment a few days ago where nearly everybody in the comments were talking about how interested they might have been in eating cat and or dog food at one point. But still, is this not at least a candidate for one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard? That said, OP, keep sending them. Planet Smasher left a comment saying, you should skip it 1 month so he thinks he's finally free of toenails. Then, boom, 2 months worth of toenails in the next envelope. Our next story is, got my lazy colleague fired. I was an admin assistant supporting 5 professionals. I was swamped with work, time was running out, so I handed some of it off to lazy Susie, who only supported 3 people and had nothing to do. 2 days before the deadline, she dumped it back on my desk, saying she had been too busy to get around to it. I knew this wasn't true because her department had nothing on at the time. For me, this was the last straw. I wanted to get her fired. I went around to the 3 execs she supported and said, I'm doing a review of admin workflow. What admin tasks do you have outstanding? None right now, was the answer. This wasn't unusual. Theirs was an ebb and flow kind of unit. Swamped 1 week, twiddling your thumbs the next. But our unit was busy most of the time. I worked overtime to get it done. I'd previously spoken with my manager about being overloaded, so I went to her office and used that info about no assignments in the pipeline in that other unit to make the case for revising the admin workflow. At the Monday morning staff meeting, our manager asked why I'd had to use the overtime to get the work done. I said, ask Susie. That work had been on her desk, then she brought it back to me. Susie said, because I'd been too busy. Perfect, she trapped herself in a lie. My manager said, may I ask, doing what for who? Because as far as I know, you were completely available. Did any of you have tasks assigned to Susie last week? They all looked at each other. See, none of her 3 people knew that the others had also not tasked her with any assignments. Susie blushed crimson red and stared at her shoes. She had just got caught lying to our boss in front of all of us. It was excruciating. Everybody winced. I knew that lazy Susie not helping out when she had nothing to do would tick off our manager to no end. Interviews for Susie's replacement began the next week. She was gone by the end of the month. The simple thing here is, we all know when somebody's clearly BSing. Lazy Susie worked with people where it was expected to have a week where they basically have nothing to do. I think the real problem wasn't that Lazy Susie was lazy, it's that Lazy Susie wasn't creative in her excuses. I was busy doesn't work as an excuse when there's nothing to be busy with. Papa left a comment saying, "Glad you called her Lazy Susie versus Lazy Susan, because a Lazy Susan at least does its job." And now, to make sure I don't have to work overtime myself, that's all the time we have for today. If you want to hear any other crazy revenge stories that hopefully don't involve clipping toenails and sending them in the mail, why not check out that video on the left? Or if you missed my latest non-toenail related video, why not check out that video on the right? That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories that aren't about toenails.